collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
On this week's programme, we'll hear all about the efforts to save the critically endangered monk seal off the coast of Cyprus.
We currently have 19 individual monk seals in the waters of Cyprus. Things we know because we're continuing our monitoring program since 2010.
And we talk to a Cypriot in America who's famous for his creative works but who is now undertaking a charity bike ride.
There's about 3,000 cyclists that participate from all over the world. You basically ride every day, and then at night they have tents where you sleep in a tent, and you wake up in the morning and you start riding again. And it's 545 miles. It's endless, but you go through this scenic road from San Francisco to Los Angeles.
We don't often have good news on the environmental front in Cyprus, but we have had some recently. The greatly endangered Mediterranean monk seal now apparently numbers 19. Well, that shows you just how very endangered it is. And we're welcoming to this week's programme from the Cyprus Fisheries Department the lady who is in charge of marine protected areas, species and habitat. She is Melina Marcu. Melina, how do you know that there are 19 monk seals? And it's not very many, is it?
Hello. So yes, you correctly said that we currently have 19 individual monk seals in the waters of Cyprus. These we know because we're continuing our monitoring program since 2010. We have installed some cameras in our sea caves around Cyprus, and also we visit them in periodic time frame in order to collect all the data through the cameras and as well the presence of the monk seals through the characteristic smells or other things that we find inside the sea cave. So it is very good news that we currently have these 19 individuals. In 2010 we only had about 7 or 10 individuals that we had identified, but at the moment it seems that our population is continuously breeding, and this shows the benefits of having this small population of monk seals in Cyprus and protection, the protection efforts that we have at the moment.
They're very shy, aren't they? And if people get too close, it can stop them breeding, I understand. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, actually the monk seal is one of the shyest seals out there. It is the rarest species of the 33 species of seals that exist in the world at the moment. And the monk seal likes to be isolated, to not be disturbed. They are not aggressive as other species of seals, but they do like their own space and to be not disturbed by the humans. Therefore, we need to understand that at the moment, especially since it's the breeding season, basically it's the season where monk seals can give birth, we need to understand their need for isolation and to behave accordingly in order to protect them. And therefore, the mother will stay in the sea cave that she chose. Basically, they chose their place that they will give birth. So if we go there and we disturb the seal every day, then the seal will just go away and she will choose a different place to give birth that might not be the best place for her. So this is one of the things that we want the people to understand, that we need the seal to be on its own at the moment and to choose the best place for her and her baby. And as well, if a monk seal gives birth and then we continue our presence and our disturbance to them, then the mother might just disappear. She might abandon the baby. So the baby is breastfeeding, so the baby will either die because of starvation or because they cannot swim at the very early stages of their life. They might even drown. So they need the mother for food and shelter and protection. So it is very, very crucial for us to stay away from their space at this critical period of their lives.
Now, in the areas where you know they are there signs warning divers and photographers off? Because there is a terrible temptation, isn't there, for people to go and investigate and do exactly the sort of disturbance you've been talking about.
Yes, correct. Actually, in several of our areas that we have identified these habitats of the monks, we have installed signs up on the shore. For example, the Beya Sea Caves or the Inakamat area. But unfortunately, we don't have anything at the moment in the Ayanapa area, since it is quite recent, the individual sighting there. Although we knew that they come in those areas, they never really stayed there, and mainly due to the human presence, the tourist industry, the boating, and all that in the area. But it seems that they do like the area, so it is a new challenge for us as well to start communicating with people of the area and the tourist industry as well, in order for us to have better protection for the monks in Ayanapa as well, like the other areas that we have them.
Well, not in the Peya area, because they built all those villas right on top of the sea caves, didn't they?
That's a different story, though. We mainly try to do the marine protected area, so we protected them in the sea. And hopefully through the various strategies that we implemented on awareness campaigns, we can have some positive results there as well. Actually, the people there, the local people there, they are quite optimistic about the monks still in their area. They do like to see them, and they do like to have them there and protect them. So hopefully through awareness campaigns and all that, we can make people everywhere in Cyprus, and the tourists and the locals, understand the crucial need of protecting such a marvelous species, because it is our honor that this species lives in our island. So it's not something to just say. It is quite unique.
Now, I know they have monk seals in Greece as well. Tell me a little bit about their territorial habits. You've discovered them in Ayanapa. Are they likely, if they're disturbed there, to move to another area of Cyprus? Do they have territories and they expect to keep those territories to themselves, or do other monk seals come along? I mean, you see other seals in great numbers, and you said these ones prefer to be solitary.
So basically in Greece, as you have said correctly, they have the highest number of the monk seals alive in Mediterranean area. Basically, the monk seals are around 700 individuals in the Mediterranean and some in the Atlantic area, like the Madeira Islands. Half of it is in Greece at the moment. So Greece has quite unique, because of the islands and geographical space and the caves and the private beaches, let's say. So they have a good monitoring program, and they have years of experience with this species. In Cyprus, on the other hand, because we don't have as much habitats for them like they have in Greece, so our habitats, the caves and the small beaches that they might prefer are very limited. So we cannot have this big number of monks that the Greece has. But we do have 19 at the moment, and we can have a few more if things go well. So a breeding and healthy population of monks in Cyprus can be, of course, throughout the years, stay here. But if we disturb them, let's say in Ayanapa, probably they will move somewhere else in Cyprus mostly. Going from Cyprus to, let's say, Greece, they might do that, but it's not very common for them to just go somewhere that far away to just give birth. For example, they might be in Ayanapa and then they move to Agamas area. We saw things like, we saw them traveling in one day from Agamas, for example, to Limassol. We have records through our cameras of the monk seal. One monk seal was during the night time was staying in Agamas area, and then in the morning time we saw that monk seal in Limassol. So they can travel. And that monk seal had even a baby with her, and she traveled with her baby.
And what happens when the babies become adults? Do they go off and find their own space?
Yeah, basically they become adults. They stop breastfeeding after a few months, like 5-6 months. They stop breastfeeding from their mothers, so they can travel with the mothers, but then you can spot them on their own as well. They try to find food on their own, like they live on the sea caves as well. So yeah, you might see them with the mother sometimes, or you might see them separately, and then they can be reproducing after 5 or 6 years old, when they become 5 or 6 years old on their own.
So that partly accounts, I guess, if they have to be 5 or 6 to start reproducing, it accounts for the fact that the numbers are so small.
Yeah, and they only live about 35 to 40 years maximum. So 40 years, that means it's a very, very old monk seal. So they have a short lifespan as well.
So apart from leaving them undisturbed, what else can people do to help in the efforts of the Fisheries Department, and particularly your department with the Habitat and Species sections, to make sure that we give them every possible chance?
So yeah, if you spot a monk seal anywhere in the water or in the beach, please do let us know where and give us some of the characteristics. For example, what color, what size was the individual monk seal that you spotted. Indicate the date, the time, the area, so we have a database in our department that we collect all this data from the people as well. If you have a picture or a video, please do share it with us, so we know which monk seal goes where, when they travel, when they are located in one specific area for a longer time, so we can have like a database of all these individuals and where they are spotted. Obviously, if you see a monk seal that is outside of the water and it seems injured, immediately contact us in order to see what we can do to give the first aid and see how we can manage this. If you see a monk seal while you're swimming, for example, because we did have phone calls of swimmers during the summertime that they were swimming and then they saw a monk seal next to them, obviously do not panic, do not make any sudden movements, and do not try to approach the seal, respect its space. You can admire the magnificent marine mammal in peace from a distance. And one more thing, do not feed the monk seal. Obviously, do not feed any wild animal, because the feeding that the monk seal in this instance, it can create problems to the animal. Either you feed it with the wrong type of food and create problems like health issues, or the seal does not learn to hunt on its own and wants to come to this fish port to eat the food that the people give them. So it is not good for the animal to behave as a pet.
2 quick last questions. Is there a hotline for people to report sightings?
At the moment, we don't have a hotline, but if you go to our website, in the DFMR's website, you see in each district, like Paphos, Limassol, our cell phone numbers. So it depends where you see the monk seal, you can call that district and let them know. Or you can send us an email. You can send me an email in my personal email, which is mmarceu@dfmr.moa.gov.cy.
And finally, how can you tell which seal is which?
We have, it's like our fingertips, we have special marks in our hands. They have special marks on their bodies as well. So we can see them and we can identify them through the markings and sometimes even the pictures of their faces. So if you have a picture that shows the markings of their back or their face, we can identify which is which.
And have you given them names?
Yes, some of them do have names, actually. So yes, some of them do have names. Some others might not have a specific name at the moment, but most of them, they do have names, yes.
Well, it's one way of identifying them. Fascinating,
Yes.
and let's hope that people do take notice of all the things that you've said, because it's great that the population is increasing, but it is still critically endangered. Melina Marcu from the Marine Protected Areas, Species and Habitat section of the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
In other news this week, a powerful earthquake struck just after 3 in the morning on Tuesday. It was centred off the Paphos coast and felt very much in the Polis and Paphos area. Reports vary as to whether it was a 6.1 or a 6.6 quake, but it was centred in the sea off Cyprus, some 50 kilometres west-northwest of Polis Chrysochous. Although people in the west of the island felt the full blast of it, it was also felt as far afield as Nicosia and the occupied territories. Reports came flooding in on social media. The whole house shook. It went on for ages. Well, it didn't go on for ages, but it certainly did go on longer than the smaller quakes that we occasionally feel here in Cyprus. Following on from that, we've had yellow weather warnings in place for most of the week, and the Met Office issued another one warning of heavy rainfall and storms. This came just hours after a warning from the Labour Ministry about high concentrations of dust in the atmosphere, and saying that vulnerable groups should take precautions and preferably stay inside. The rain, however, although it's been torrential in some areas, is good news for the water supply and our dams. Although causing serious disruption in some urban areas, overall dams are now some 56% full, and although that is down on stocks at the same time last year, it does mean that with more rain expected, we could be looking at a much better year in terms of our water supply.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Now, if anybody was with us a couple of years ago, they will have heard me talking to film director, actor, general creator, Harry Michalis. He lives in the States, but he visits Cyprus often and is well known for his film about Olympia Dukakis. That's what we talked about last time, Harry, but I was very interested to hear your news of this last year, and like so many other people, it's been a very mixed year, I think, for you. You were injured in 2020, but you are now back on your feet and you've undertaken a challenge. So do tell us about that.
Hi, Rosie. It's so good to be with you again. Yeah, 2020 has been difficult for a lot of people. In New York, I live in New York, and the pandemic shut down everything on March 12th, and on March 14th I had my injury, which kept me in bed for months. And what a lot of people don't know is that I used to be a professional dancer, so I dealt with a lot of body injuries in the past for extended periods of time. And when this injury happened in 2020, it just, brought me down. And it was very difficult. So it took about a year to get back on my feet and to be able to start exercising again. And once I started, I used to be a cyclist before, and I started getting back on my bike again. And as I started feeling better, I decided to sign up for this bike ride that I have done in the past in 2017, which is basically a bike ride from San Francisco to Los Angeles, which is 545 miles, and you do it in a week, 7 days. And so that's what I'll be doing.
So that's quite a challenge, particularly since you are coming back from an injury. But I'm interested to know what you did to get over that injury, because it can't have been easy, and it must also have been very stressful mentally for you to see the possibility of maybe your career going up in smoke and just the idea that you might not be properly fit again.
Yeah, it was very difficult, partly because COVID was happening. It was at the peak of everything, and I couldn't see a doctor. We weren't allowed to go to the hospitals. So I just lay in bed hoping, that I thought I had pulled my back, basically. And I was like, okay, this is going to be fine. 2-3 days, I'll be better. And then it wasn't getting better. And then eventually, I think 2 months later, they started doing the telehealth, which basically you call in a doctor. And then the doctor prescribed to me some heavy medication. That didn't help either. And it took months before I was able to actually see someone. So yes, I mean, I was depressed. I was worried about, will I be able to walk again? I couldn't sit. I couldn't walk. So the only place that I could feel comfortable was my bed, lying down. And, after like a couple of days, you're already sick of being in bed. So it was a very tough year. And at the same time, my film came out on the digital platforms in March, the same time that I got the injury. So I had to find ways to, do social media and do marketing and, from my bed. And, that was rough. And you don't know if things are going to get better. I hope, but it's hard. It's definitely hard.
And those feelings of isolation and depression, I think, have been shared by so many people during the COVID lockdowns, which have gone on now for so long. Have you got a word of advice, maybe? I know everybody's different, but what kept you going? How did you manage to, if you like, pass that hurdle and come back?
Well, as far as there's two different stories here. One is COVID, and the other one is an injury. And I really don't know what to tell anyone that's going through, something as hard as an injury where they can't walk, other than being patient. But if somebody said that to me at the time, I would have been like, okay, whatever. But COVID. What I found out that what helps me is staying in touch with people I love and doing things by myself. So that's why I started cycling again. I was like, okay, so I can't go to the gym. I can't really meet up with people. I'm just going to get on my bike and go around town. There was less traffic last year. And, that's doing things by yourself that bring you joy, I think, is my advice to people.
And I guess that cycling around town, probably a lot of it was in parks and things. What about that feeling of connection with nature? Did that play a part for you?
Absolutely. There was a need to, the wonderful thing that happened with COVID is that all of a sudden you would open our windows, our apartment windows, and you could hear birds chirping. I'm talking about 2020, in March. And you would walk in the streets and you could hear wildlife. And it was a first. And that was like awakened this feeling of, oh my God, I need to be more with nature. And so we would rent a car, later when I was able to walk and sit. We rent cars and we go upstate, to the mountains and just take the dogs and walk around just for the day and come back. So yes, the need to be in nature was huge.
And of course, we are very, very lucky, are we not, that technology means we can remain in contact, even virtually, with people that you couldn't have done even maybe 20 or 30 years ago. So you can Zoom them, you can talk to them even if you can't be in physical contact. There is some sort of social contact there. Was that important for you?
It was, and it really was. And again, in 2020, there was a lot more time in my hands. There was no work, I was injured. So eventually, again, when I was able to get out of bed, I arranged, for example, with my mother, and we would cook together. Once a week, we would basically get on Zoom, and we would make the same dish and just like talk and chat and laugh and, connect with, because I haven't seen her. I haven't seen my parents for 2 years now. And I thought, okay, it's important to stay in contact. And I would do the same thing with not cooking, but like Zoom calls with friends, and just so you can be social. Just being social was important, because how many Netflix series can you watch? We had months and months and months of free time, and you just had to. I just had to find other things to do, and being social was very important for me.
All right, and one of the other things you found to do is going to be happening in the summer between June the 5th and the 11th, I believe, and this is this AIDS LifeCycle bike ride that you've been talking about from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Now, you need to raise money. Tell me about that, where people can sponsor you and what the money's going to.
So the bike ride started back in the 80s when there was no funding from the government for AIDS research. And these people decided to start this bike ride to raise money for that. And it's in 2017, for example, when we did it, we raised $6 million in that year. It's an amazing event. There's about 3,000 cyclists that participate from all over the world. You basically ride every day, and then at night they have tents where you sleep in a tent with someone, and you wake up in the morning and you start riding again. And it's 545 miles. It's endless, but you go through this scenic road from San Francisco to Los Angeles, mainly on the beach, by the sea, but at some point you go inside land, and it's just gorgeous. And to be able to see California on a bicycle, it is one of a lifetime experience. So the bike ride raises money for two organizations, the San Francisco AIDS Foundation and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. And it's for AIDS research, it's for housing and medication for people with HIV. They're wonderful organizations. So in order to participate in the bike ride, you have to raise a specific amount of money that you say you want to raise. And for me, it was $3,000. I've managed to raise $4,500 so far. So I've gone over my, what I have told them that I would do.
But you still would like some more, I take it, if you can double the amount you asked for.
Yes.
Where can people find out how they can donate, and is there a website for this event?
So they can go to the website tofighthiv.org/go-to/Harry Michalis. So the website is www.tofighthiv.org. And I think if they search my name, Harry Michalis, they would be able to find it.
Well, it's great that not only are you back in the saddle, but also enjoying nature and doing it all for a very worthy cause, Harry. I'm glad that you're over the problems that you've had, and I know that included, I think, losing your dog, didn't it, just before Christmas? I'm so sorry about that. But I guess that we all have to, with the new year, look forward to the good things, and I hope they come your way, Harry. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rosie. And yes, and I just want to do a little shout out for my little dog, who I found in La Gadamia 13 years ago and brought him to the States with me. And his name was Tanasi, and he's been my little baby, my best friend since then. So it's been hard, but he's off to a better place.
That's Harry Mavromichali, and if you would like to support him, go to that website and donate something towards a very good cause. And we're very glad to see that after all he's been through in the last couple of years, he is now on the mend. Our thanks to him for joining us. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.